Susan Joy Rennison. I'm going to be talking to you today. Can you not hear me? Can you hear me? That's it, sorry. I'll start again. I'm Susan Joy Rennison, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about space weather. This presentation is a little bit different to the presentation I gave to the students because I want to talk more about the metaphysical and the spiritual side of things. But with the start of this presentation, I want to talk about the changes to our planet because I actually think that's very important. And the driving energy and the changes taking place. So it may seem that I'm talking on a technical level, but on a deeper spiritual level, there are things changing. And I think it's really important to have a balance and explain what's taking place. Now, with the students, I gave it was really more like a snapshot over the last 20 years. We had a huge geomagnetic storm in 1989, and that was quite transformative for a lot of scientists and engineers. The thought that planet Earth is not isolated in space. Okay? So what I want to do is, instead of talking about the last 20 years, I want to explain the announcements that have been coming from the space agencies like NASA and the European space agencies. It will give like a flavour of what our scientists are actually facing. So this is really just recent, July. It's basically after I wrote my essay, The Greatest Transition, I gave details of major press releases from NASA and the space agency. But since then, it's all happening. It's literally just one thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. That's how it is. The transformation process of this planet is going at a pace. Okay, so I've just felt that we would cover the same ground as talking about the last 20 years, but just say what's been happening just over what's been happening since 2010, July 2010. So the first slide, and I've got a lot of slides, is the fact that that NASA felt the need to actually try and get other countries to cooperate. They had a program called Living with a Star, but now they feel they have to open it up, and they've been having initiatives that have been hosted by the United Nations, and they've been inviting the Japanese to come and other countries to come, and for the scientists to pool their resources. They're taking this much more seriously. They recognise that after 20 years, they're still not coming up with solutions. So this is a chart explaining that the cosmic rays are coming in. We've had announcements telling us that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and because of that, that the Earth's magnetic field is weakening at the same time as the Sun's magnetic field is weakening as well. And the Sun is not pushing out or deflecting cosmic rays coming from galactic sources. So they announced, now this is actually the second announcement here because they made an announcement earlier about the cosmic rays. I think that was September 2009. They announced that cosmic rays were at the highest levels that we've seen in the space age. But in October, they actually announced that this minimum here was also a max, that the levels of cosmic rays coming in was also extremely high at the minimum. The Sun was incredibly weak and sluggish, and I'm going to actually explain what was going on there, and it is more of a metaphysical explanation. Okay, so this will have an impact on human DNA. With these cosmic rays flying in, you literally have particles surging through your bodies, even though you're not even aware of it, and there will be changes taking place in our DNA. The quote here, actually, that I highlighted, let's say, it's sort of like everything is working in the same direction right now to allow cosmic rays greater access greater access to the inner solar system. It's almost like everything is working together. The sun's gone quiet, Earth's dropping her magnetic field, and the energy is just whooshing into the planet. The metaphysical community have been saying this for a very long time, but this is the evidence. So, this was an amazing announcement. Lloyd's of London are actually warning business leaders now. They're saying that you have to think of your business. What are you going to do if there's no electricity? What contingency plans are you going to make? This is a really, really nice report written by Professor Mike Hapgood. And it's a nice read. I don't know if there's going to be any translations into Dutch, but the fact that they're prepared to start talking and publicly announcing this and making more of a noise, because space weather's been just getting worse for 20 years. It's just now they're starting to say, you know what, maybe we should really start seriously thinking about what we're going to do. Okay, now, this report was also presented to British MPs, and I was very surprised about that. So there is a high level, there is more activity, there is more concern, more sort of let's get to grips with this. I was actually very surprised to see this announcement. This is the Telegraph in the UK. They actually started to say there is an issue with people who do frequent flying. There is more, there is more and more cosmic radiation coming into our planet. And if you're a frequent flyer, you have to think about how much radiation you're actually getting. Okay, so the warning was 40,000 feet. If you're constantly flying at a high altitude, then there is an issue. And of course, pilots, it's always been an issue for them anyway. And, airline staff, people who actually work in the industry, it's always been an issue for them. But it's now becoming an issue for passengers as well. So then we had, this is the International Space Weather Initiative, and this is to do with the fact that the equatorial electrojet, I don't know if I actually, okay, I'll just let you see that. This is the current that I talk about in my book, that I believe the mind referring to is the serpent rope. It literally circles the globe once a day. And it's actually causing an awful lot of issues. So I'm just going to go back to this. And basically NASA, this was actually hosted by the United Nations, and they invited, there was 30 nations turned up. The quote that I thought was actually quite hilarious was this: "No country is too remote, too small, or too poor to participate. As long as you're bright enough, then we'll provide the resources because we need your help. We want scientists in this, especially the African countries, because Africa is such a large country, to actually help monitor what's happening with this huge electrical current." From the metaphysical community, we were told this was excess energy being stored on the planet. From a sort of plasma physics point of view, this is just how a huge body stores excess energy around the equator. That's just a plasma thing. And I say that in my book I talked about 1989 when this thing just got huge. It was actually a feature that scientists were aware of since about 1922. But it was just a trickle of energy. It was just a trickle. All of a sudden it's turned into the Mississippi. This thing is now a huge nuisance floating around the planet. And they don't really understand it because sometimes it just reverses. It's not always flowing in the one direction. Sometimes it just says, okay, and turns the other way and goes back the other way, and they have no idea what this thing is doing and why it's doing it. So they really want scientists to monitor this. I'm just going to go back and get the quote. Basically, NASA are admitting that they just can't solve this problem on their own. International cooperation is now essential for keeping track of the equatorial anomaly. No single country can do it alone. It's now getting The fact that they're prepared to admit this after 20 years is actually quite interesting. Okay, there it is. I think it's the serpent rope, but that's just my opinion. Okay, so this is the problem with the GPS. Have you noticed? There's a bit of a coincidence there, really. This feature is really upsetting. And we've got to think about GPS. We use it for so many things: navigation, for oil drilling, for farming. Farmers use GPS for planting and for all sorts of things. I mean, it's used for financial transactions, for time stamping. GPS is very, very important to our modern world. And basically, with space weather, we're getting all sorts of issues. So, anyway, so just read this. It says, solar storms, GPS signals distort and normal radio communications are impossible. That's a quote. Okay, this is a real issue for NASA, space agencies, telecommunication agencies. Now, this is a really strange one. I haven't really looked into this a lot because I just have too much to do, quite frankly. Sometimes we have amazing announcements that are just missed, things that our scientists are discovering that just don't go into the normal media. And I just found this by accident. Some Italian scientists were really totally amazed of this feature that they've called the crazy diamond. We basically had a huge gamma ray burst, but instead of it just being like a blob, just a blast in space, it looks like a diamond. It's just, how is that possible? We are seeing really strange, unique, and incredible things going on there. Because I'm into diamonds, I just thought it was amazing. But we are seeing some incredible things taking place out in space. I see a sort of a more spiritual implications for it as well. So another announcement in the UK, we have a new UK space agency, and they're sponsoring something called Solar Stormwatch, and they're inviting the public to help them predict when we're going to have massive storms from the sun. So if you can sign up, you can actually help solar scientists predict when we're going to have the coronal mass ejections. They can't really do anything about the solar flares because they arrive in 8 minutes and 29 seconds. But the actual bulk of the damage is caused by these coronal mass ejections. And basically they're teaching people online and then asking people to, to give their services to help. I went through the tutorial. I was just totally amazed myself, quite frankly. Now, this is really hilarious. We had a satellite that became a zombie. Basically, it died, well, not completely died. They lost control of Galaxy 15, and this thing just basically went rogue and has been wandering around in its orbit, transmitting signals, interfering with other satellites. There are things happening that we've never envisaged. It's chaos out there. And it's all to do with the fact that the environment in space is changing. We are getting huge deliveries of energy. Boom, boom, boom. And the satellites are just being zapped. They're being knocked out. This is the first time we've actually had a zombie sat, where the thing was just sort of alive. It was sort of alive. It's quite incredible that we are seeing things that we didn't plan for, because quite frankly, we started off the space industry in a time when things were very quiet, but we're actually moving into a completely different dispensation now, completely different time, of tremendous deliveries of energy to this planet. Now, another announcement. As I say, this is quite amazing, really. We are having very strange bursts of energy in our atmosphere. We are seeing things that our scientists only believed would be possible coming from a black hole or coming from a supernova explosion. We are seeing extreme energies. They're now telling us that we're having these extreme blasts above thunderstorms or in thunderstorms, at the top of thunderstorms. And they're now saying they're happening 500 times a day. 500 times a day. But wait a minute. When I wrote my book, they actually said that these blasts were taking place 50 times a day. So in 2 years, since the last time, because what's happening, we're getting regular updates from the scientists. In 2008, they say everywhere we look, we are seeing X-rays and gamma rays flying out of thunderstorms and lightning. The gamma rays are coming out of thunderstorms are so intense we can measure them 600 kilometers away and so bright they almost blind the spacecraft. Actually, this press release, lightning storm gamma rays could harm air travelers, is probably the most panicked press release I've ever seen. Scientists just can't believe what's taking place in the skies. And in this same press release, they said the 50 times a day. It's definitely happening. There's definitely an increase of the energies and the shift of energies. There's something happening in our atmosphere. Apparently, this field of science is actually now on fire. Excuse the pun, but scientists really want to get involved and really want to understand what's happening in our atmosphere. So here, if you want to go to NASA's website, they will give you a nice little animation, and they're showing how we're getting huge bursts. Now, as far as they're concerned, they feel safe to tell people that energy is bursting out into space. Quite frankly, I can't work out why, if it's an explosion, why it's not going in all directions. So some of it's coming down to ground level. They just want you to think, don't worry, folks, it's all going out to space. That can't be right. Okay, so this is just a demonstration of this burst of energy. We're getting beams of electrons, and they're actually being picked up by satellites all around the planet. Okay, so next, this announcement just totally blew me away. The environment of our planet, we're basically facing a storm, a cosmic storm. We had 25 comets hit the sun in 10 days. That's absolutely amazing. The scientists said this is just ridiculous, unprecedented, crazy. That is the terms that the space scientists use. I'm not making this up. You can check the press releases yourself. 25 small comets hit the sun in 10 days, and I will explain what's going on out there. But I've put these flashbacks. The military are now hiding, the US military are now hiding fireball data. They just don't want people knowing that there's a storm out there. There's a storm of energy. And in fact, it upset the astronomers so much that some of them threatened to leave the country and go and work somewhere else where they could get the data they were looking for. Okay. So here I just want to emphasize the fact that for a long time scientists thought that space was a really quiet place. Nothing happens. That's what I was taught when I was at school and at university. Space is a quiet place. It's dead cold. Nothing's going on. That is just so far away from the truth. It really is. Okay, so here I just want to point out that scientists have been doing computer models of spiral galaxies, and they think that our galaxy is like this. They're not sure, to be honest, because we're inside this galaxy, so we can't really see it properly, but they believe they've identified these spiral arms. They think that Earth and our solar system is on what they call a local arm. It's a split off, basically, from a bigger arm. Okay, I liked it because it had this diamond-shaped thing inside it. I thought, oh, I'll use this one. Okay. But it turns out that scientists have been doing models, and they say that these spiral arms can actually create spurs. They actually get fragmented by bursts of energy in space. And so space is a lot more diverse. And basically, as we're traveling around...
There's a bit of an echo in the...
Is it too much, is it?
Maybe you can turn the volume a bit.
How do I do that? It's too hard, is it? You can't hear it. I don't know what to do with this. Shall I take this mic away from my mouth? You don't think that helps at all?
Just keep talking, we'll try to figure it out.
Okay. I'm just wondering if I should just talk a bit quieter, or if that helps.
Anyway.
Okay. I'll just put this back on my... You want me to be a bit slower in what I say?
Perhaps that's okay.
Okay. If I just... I was thinking about moving the mic a bit. So basically, our solar system is not quite like this. That is the way that it's presented to the general public. But in reality, it's much more complex. And possibly the fact that we have things happening on Earth, climate change, climate variability, may be more to do with the fact that as our solar system travels around the galactic center, that things are, we're meeting different types of space. Okay, and it may be more to do with the fact that things are far more fragmented. Okay, and I find this interesting that we are actually, it's possible to actually see what the scientists are thinking. It's much easier to understand what they're saying these days. Okay, now I wanted to show you this particular slide and emphasize the fact that the Russians, oh my goodness, I've done that wrong. Okay. The Russians told us that we were traversing a new region of space 10 years ago. In fact, it was 1997, 10 years before the Americans admitted it. Okay. And this is actually, I don't really want to read all the details, but just show you the picture. Okay, that the sun is actually in a transition zone. This blue transition zone. We're moving from what they thought was the local interstellar medium into a new region. And we have a cloud that is approaching us coming from the galactic center. Now wait a minute, what's all this talk about the galactic center? We've had all sorts of messages talking about energy coming from the galactic center, changes, transitions. I just think that some of the messages have got mixed up. Okay? This is real. This is what's happening. And I just feel it's important that we don't keep going along with the old ideas that aren't actually correct. I don't talk about things like the photon belt. I don't know what on earth that is, what that was meant to be. I talk about things that I know for a fact is actually happening. So I just want to explain that, scientists are aware of the fact that our solar system is in space and it's literally approaching the edge of one region and hitting another region. But in between is something called the Oort cloud. And that basically it's filled with rocks and asteroids. And we're actually disturbing this region. And I believe that what's happening is there is a massive disturbance taking place. And that's why we're seeing a lot more comets and fireballs and asteroids at the moment taking place. The other thing is the fact that scientists have known that there's going to be a change, but the whole thing was just a huge guessing game. They can't really measure distances in space. However, we've had fairly accurate predictions from people groups, indigenous groups, from like the Maya. They said, you know what, it's now. And it's really quite amazing because I'm going to go through a chart with all the guesses from the scientific community, and comparing to the information that's come from metaphysical sources. The metaphysical sources have been incredibly accurate. Okay, just want to show you the official NASA picture of where our sun is and the fact we seem to be in some kind of transition zone. Okay, and I talked about the ribbon, the snake. I talked about that in my essay. And the fact that it really is like this. It really is. Our little solar system is plunging, is very, very close to a huge transition which is going to affect life on Earth. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It's going to affect life on Earth. So this is a little bit, I'm not going to go into all this detail. I just want you to know that there are scientists that have actually studied this. Paul Laviolette has done some excellent research, and he talks about this dust. I'm not going to go into it. I just want you to be aware of the fact that instead of scientists believing that space was completely empty, instead of that, they've now admit that space is not empty. It's full of life. It's full of dust. Dust is actually, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's freeze-dried bacteria. If you want to understand this, you have to look at the research of people like Sir Fred Hoyle and Chandra Wickramasinghe, his name is. These are scientists that have been looking at this for many, well, Sir Fred Hoyle has actually died now, but his partner is actually still alive. And they've been investigating this. It's almost like the universe manufactures life. It's already ready to go. It's manufactured in space. We talk about humans being from dust. It's actually true. It's true. Dust is not something that's inorganic. It's not dead. It's actually alive. It's like pre-life, already ready to go. If you think about freeze-dried coffee, all you have to do is put the hot water and the milk and the sugar, maybe some alcohol would be nice, and you've got something nice. It's almost like it's manufactured, and it's like it's sprinkled liberally. Whatever planet it hits, depending on the conditions of the planet, then that life takes. It's a very different concept. It's a concept that our scientists have resisted. You know, they just wanted to say that life was only developed on this planet. That's not true. The evidence is that life is liberally spread throughout the universe. Okay, so this is just more notes, and we're not really going to go into it. I just want you to be aware of the fact these are like markers of scientists admitting that we've actually got a lot of dust flying into our solar system, and it's coming from the direction of the galactic center as well. Now, in the metaphysical community, they've been talking about the arrival of adamantine particles. It's like a high energy, a high life of energy coming into our universe. At the same time as our scientists are desperate to get hold of a little pieces of this life to investigate it. I'm thinking, you know, wait a minute, is this a coincidence or what? You know, we've got space probes going out and actually rendezvousing with comets, picking up bits of normal dust and then picking up bits of this special dust. We have people called, actually the scientists have invited They've invited ordinary members of the public to help them search through the there's actually quite a lot of particles, but they've actually done it in such a way that they've collected some of this dust, and they've been asking the public to help them sift through the normal dust and this special dust. They have something like 29,000 people helping them, and they've found 3 specks, and the scientists are thrilled with the 3 specks. I know it sounds crazy. There's something really interesting going on. Why are they wanting to understand what this energy, this special energy, is coming into our solar system? I haven't really done a slide for the amount of activity that's going on. The astronauts on the ISS space agency are investigating this plasma energy. They're doing this research on the ISS. We also have many scientists on Earth studying this plasma, these charged subatomic particles, because they want to know what's going to happen when we enter a different region of space. They want to understand this. So the whole area of science has been galvanized. A lot more work has been going on in the last 15 years, very quietly. They want to understand what impacts that's going to have on Earth. Okay, we're going to sort of change up a little bit here now. On Earth, things are getting really interesting. I think this image is absolutely incredible. A spiral aurora. The science, the photographers and ordinary people who live in the north say things are really heating up, Normally the auroras come and go. Now it's like someone is constantly feeding a fire. People are noticing that something is happening. For me, I find that image really quite powerful. Something's happening. We're also seeing things that shouldn't happen as well, by the way. This is a daylight aurora, and not that long ago, our scientists refused to believe it was even possible for us to be seeing this spark in the sky during the day, because it just means that this energy is so strong, it's so bright. It's not supposed to happen, but it's happening. I just feel it's really important to point out that we're seeing signs of this transition that's taking place. I don't know if that's such a good picture, actually. We're seeing strange clouds. I can't go into all the clouds because, quite frankly, there is so much happening. This is a cloud that's been seen for 30 years, but it's becoming much more prevalent. It's not officially classified. Aspiratus clouds. And there's a movement to actually get it becoming official. So people have been taking pictures for 30 years. It's a weird-looking cloud. This is another version of it. Very ominous-looking clouds, particularly prevalent in America. Very strange. This is something that is I just do not believe the official explanation for this at all. Something to do with the storm front. Come on. What's really weird is this normal cloud above it. It's called a roll cloud or a morning glory. In Australia, they tend to have this at a certain time of the year in a certain place. So in certain places on the planet, we've been seeing them regularly, like springtime. But I've seen YouTube clips of Japanese weather people going up in an aeroplane and just say, what on earth? Because there's just lines of them. The sky is just filled with these lines. It's just like, what on earth is going on? That, to me, I think that's a magnetic field line. And that the cloud is formed around a magnetic field line. That is just bizarre. But we're seeing more of these strange things taking place on the planet. I just think that's quite impressive, but anyway. We're also seeing these noctilucent clouds, which are highly electrified clouds. I hope that's come out quite well. So that's one. Wait a minute, I've gone too far, I think. Okay, I made a mistake. There's supposed to be two of these, I thought. Just see if there is two. No, there isn't. Okay, I thought there was two. It seems to have missed something. So we've got these these noctilucent clouds that are highly electrical, but they also seem to have like metal or something because they reflect radar. That's very strange clouds. High up on our atmosphere, I think that they've got a certain type of dust that we don't normally see on the planet. But these noctilucent clouds were first appeared after Krakatoa, so that's about 1838, is that, when the Krakatoa went up and we had this volcanic dust in the atmosphere and we had these very, very bright clouds. What's happening though is that they used to be stuck in the north and south poles. But these clouds are getting closer and closer, so we're seeing them in Europe, France, the UK, Holland. I saw some for Holland, but they didn't look real. I thought, oh, I can't show that, because I just didn't believe it. It's just like these stripes in the sky. I don't know if you've seen them here in Holland. The pictures I thought didn't look like normal noctilucent clouds, so I thought I'm going to steer safe. I just thought the ones that were supposed to be from Holland, I thought they were a bit too strange for me. I thought maybe this chemtrailing got mixed up with that as well, even though the chemtrailing is much lower down in the sky. I just didn't like, it didn't look like a normal noctilucent cloud. This is more normal. These clouds are highly electrified clouds. We're also seeing pillars of light as well. I don't know how, if you can see that fan shape? Our scientists can't even explain this. We're seeing like this trumpet shape at the top and also at the bottom sometimes. Total mystery. All I can say is from the official explanations, we've got ice crystals that are normally held very high up in the atmosphere. And sometimes those ice crystals can actually be brought down to ground level. Now the ice crystals are not melting, and the reason for that is because they're charged and the energy is coming down, and because of the charge on the crystals, it means that the freezing point is not changing, so they're still staying frozen. Whereas normally, if you come down to Earth, they should just melt. I love seeing these pillars. To me, there's something going on. We don't fully understand the science, and our scientists are admitting it. They don't understand what these pillars of light are. They know what normal pillars look like. I'm going to show you normal pillars. So basically you have a light source reflecting up into the sky, and it's picking up these crystals, and these crystals are all aligned in a certain way. So this is, I think, a wonderful picture. It's one of the best ones I've found on the internet. The energies are coming down, and it's very clearly, because this is normally considered to be like freak conditions, when you have all the crystals aligned, flat crystals all aligned in a certain way, and the light's shining through them, and you're seeing these pillars of light. This is normal. These are normal pillars. But the other ones I showed you, they're not so normal. Scientists can't explain those. Okay. Okay, I've made a mistake here. This is more noctilucent clouds. I didn't realise that actually. I knew there was two, but so this was in Poland. These incredible, strange clouds. And the thing with these noctilucent clouds is that pilots are confessing they've never seen them before. If you think about pilots, they spend thousands and thousands of hours in the skies. for them to admit that they've never seen these strange clouds before is, to me, is quite significant. So we're also seeing things like this. This was taken at an air show, and in fact, they didn't see it at the time. It was only when the film was developed that they noticed this incredible feature. I think they came up with some strange excuse, actually. Basically, the atmosphere of Earth is now highly charged. The energy that's coming is highly electrified, highly charged energy. The stuff that we can measure. The other thing we have to say with this massive bombardment of energy is that 90% of it, our scientists can't even detect. It's the dark matter, the dark energy stuff, that they say must exist. Now this is another thing here. This was the space shuttle launch. Again, the people that were videoing and photographing got the surprise of their life. It looks like a feather. This is just a massive electrical discharge. It's a plasma thing. It's just total standard plasma electrical discharge. Completely unexpected, but it's not unexpected if you realize that our skies are changing. The environment of Earth is becoming much more highly charged. So, are you aware of the hole punch clouds or punch hole clouds? What we're seeing, it looks like something is literally punching a hole in the skies. And what's happening is that this is cirrus clouds that normally form much higher up. But because of this concept of the charge, depending on the charge of the crystals, of the dust crystals that they're forming the clouds, they can form much lower down. It's just the same thing with the pillars, in effect. It's just a variation on a theme. But this is bizarre. See this? It looks like a vortex, like a spinning, like something is spinning down to Earth. And there's this thing that's coming down. It's actually creating a cloud with it. Now, I just want to point out this website. If you've not come across this, this is probably the best website I've seen, weathervortex.com. They've got loads of these pictures. In America, there's pictures where there's like 2 or 3 holes all in the same place. I'm thinking, what's going on? Well, I do know what's going on, actually. I think these are quite nice. I spent a lot of time looking for these particular pictures. Just want to point out this. See this ring here? There's a ring. There's something going on. You don't get a ring here because this is what they call altocolumus clouds. It's depending on where they are. If the clouds are thin, you get this clean hole. If the clouds are thick, you're getting a sort of ring appearing. Okay, so this is just the official charts of the different types of clouds. Okay, so this is a cirrus cloud that's normally held very high in the sky. This is a sort of altocumulus cloud, and this is the nimbus stuff, the much thicker clouds at the bottom, stratocumulus. Okay? So we're also getting variations on a theme. Sometimes beams are coming, I assume they're beams coming down, and they're skimming the clouds. So you get elongated versions of this. The main thing to point out is that there seems to be evidence of a differential in charge. Something is coming down. We're seeing beams of energy coming down that are very specific. And the explanation for this is that the clouds are forming in a sort of anomalous way. Because the clouds are becoming charged, the air is becoming charged, and things that normally form very high are forming now very low. Just wanted to show you how this feather ice, which is very sort of pretty, can form actually at ground level, but it has to be very, very cold for it to do. This same feathering effect. See, it's just a standard way of ice crystals forming. Okay, so this is just on a stick, on a plateau in Norway. And this is what our clouds actually look like. It's just a variation on a theme. Okay? As our scientists have said, they've known for about 150 years that you have this, how electrical field can actually affect the freezing point of water. It's nothing new, and it's quite strange seeing scientists saying, we don't really understand this, but they've known for 150 years that this can happen. It's just a sign, I'm explaining it technically, just a sign that this is just not, I'm not just making this up. The scientific community are well aware. It's just putting 2 and 2 together and coming up to a conclusion. I normally make a joke and say 2 and 2, and I say 44. That's my joke, but anyway. So we're now seeing these UFO clouds, which is what people are calling UFO clouds. I think it's incorrect. But there's a lot of buzz in the blogosphere now because of these really strange clouds. And there's been quite big examples in Romania and various parts of the world. It's basically the same cloud. If the cloud is thick, we're getting these rings in the sky, which to me are pointing out where we're getting these downpours of energy. So the thing with plasma is that you get the same thing happening on a large scale as you get on a smaller scale. So this concept of the donut on a stick is something how electrical universe people explain how black holes work. So I don't really want to go too much into the technical details of this, but I believe that we're seeing a similar type of event taking place in the skies around our planet. It's an electrical phenomena. It's not how our scientists believe. I think that this is definitely duplicating at a large scale and at a smaller scale. And if you look it up, this concept of a, okay, I've gone too far. This concept of they call the donut on a stick is a common. Now this is how they explain black holes. It is a common thing that's seen in the universe. Okay, next. This is interesting because just want to say that there was now more cooperation taking place between plasma physicists and astronomers, cosmologists, trying to understand how black holes work. But in this experiment, they actually used an electron beam. Now, I'm doing this in a certain way to point out, when I say that we're getting beams of energy hitting our planet, I'm trying to say to you that our scientists are already investigating this. This is already going on in the background. I'm not making these assertions with no basis. Okay? Here, I'd just like to point out a book that I've got. It's by a lady called Viola Petit-Neal. This is a very highly respected lady. She actually died in 1981, I think. This lady used to have dreams. She says she went to night school and she could remember what she was being taught. And she wrote a book, she kept a diary, and she said to her friend, I don't want people to know about this until after I've died. And so she died in 1981, and the book was published in 1983. It's a strange book. I will say it is a strange book. There's things in there that I've never come across anywhere else. She talks about different types of people on the planet. Some of it is just a bit strange even for me. But she was told in her dreams that our solar system is moving through a different region of space and that we're actually going to have a transformation taking place. What's of interest to me, this information was from early 1960s. 61, 62, 63 is when she was being given this information. It's like people have been told there's a transformation taking place. What I like about this is that this woman had absolutely nothing to gain from sharing this information. She was very careful how people perceived her because of her position. But she still wanted people to know the truth, so she said to her friend, when I'm dead, you can publish my stuff. This is the only source that I've come across that actually said that Earth is going to be hit with beams of energy from the cosmos. I've never come across it in the metaphysical literature anywhere else, but I'm sure there are other sources providing the same information. And I find that really quite incredible. And she talks geophysics, which is why I'm interested. She talks about lots of different subjects, but she clearly saw this as to do with the fact that we're moving into a different region of space, and it was going to cause transformation on this planet. I think it's important that we remember it's not just the people that have been talking now who are very vocal. This message has been going into the metaphysical, spiritual community for decades, and it's now happening. Okay, so we're getting these holes. I just want to talk about sinkholes. Maybe I'm probably going to spend too much time, but we're seeing really strange holes. Now, we're being told that this hole was caused by water. I would just like to point out, look how straight those sides are. It looks like it's been cut with a laser. I just don't believe the conventional explanation at all. Okay, normally when you have a sinkhole, it's a chemical reaction, and it's not, you create like a Swiss cheese thing. It's like a weakening going on in the rocks. It's a sort of it's a sort of fairly sort of chaotic chemical process where you get crumbling of the rocks. There's nothing like straight line holes at all. It's just not how this process works. And if you go to the geologists, when they're talking about some of these holes, they just say it's not a sinkhole. That the one in Guatemala, where they call that a piping feature. Okay, so there's different definitions, but everybody's calling them sinkholes because it's a hole and things sink into them, I suppose. So I just want to point out, we are seeing some really strange things. China, look at that in the middle of the road. Perfectly round, looks like it's been cut with a laser. I don't believe that's a sinkhole. This one here is a hole that divers like to entertain themselves with. It's what, 300 meters wide, 125 meters deep. I don't believe that is a normal process, because if it was done by water, how could it stay stable? You know, it should spread out, but it's not. It's just a straight down hole. This is just something from mining where the mine is collapsed. It's a hole, but you can see that it's not like it's been cut with a laser. I don't know if that's easy to see. Here, more real sinkholes. That's a real sinkhole. People building on land that's not really very good land to be building buildings on. The thing in Guatemala is a little bit different to the rest, because it's on a type of volcanic land, volcanic deposits. It's a type of pumice stone, that's officially what it's called. And you're getting these very round-looking things. It's not a sinkhole, they call it a piping feature, but I still don't believe the official geological explanation for this. Now, this is a real sinkhole. I think we are seeing a lot of shifting taking place. because of the massive bursts of energy hitting the planet. We're seeing huge increase in volcanoes, in earthquake activity, and I think that there's energies rippling through the planet. So I think we are going to see sinkholes, real sinkholes, but at the same time I think we're also seeing energies literally hitting the planet like a laser beam as well. Okay, that's just another example of a kimberlite pipe. I mentioned this in my book, the fact that you can have bursts of energy coming up from the core of the Earth. And here, this example, they've mined this. So I just want to remind people that there's energies coming up from the core and there's energies hitting the planet directly. Okay, it's not simple, but we seem to be seeing an awful lot of holes appearing all over the planet. This is holes stamped on ice. Here, an icicle hole. Here, an icicle hole. And that was actually, this picture's been taken from the ISS. The astronauts actually detected this. Oh, no, this is, yes. I'm just going to show you that a little bit closer up. They think, oh, maybe it was geothermal energies, but this is still a mystery. Why are we getting these stamps on ice? I don't, at the moment this is all speculative. I mean, that ring is something like 5 miles, 8 kilometers across. It's just a very strange feature on the ice. I think that the planet was actually hit with a beam of light, or an electron beam actually is probably a better thing to say. And we are seeing evidence of the planet being hit. Okay, I'm going to change tack a little bit here and talk about the fact that the metaphysical community have been receiving information from various sources, and it's something that's, we seem to be given information on a cosmic information, how things affect things on Earth. And one bit of information is about the transit of Venus. And I find this particularly interesting because I feel I found some verification of what's been given in the metaphysical community. The Venus transit itself is one of the rarest planetary alignments. So, we have these transits that take place approximately every 120 years, and they occur in pairs. And basically, we've had one that's been associated with a very, very quiet time of the sun. And we're actually currently in between a transit. We're nearly at the end of the latest one. There is one researcher who basically says, from his research, that the Mayan elders were aware of the fact that the Venus actually acts as a circuit breaker for the sun. Somehow, Venus has been called the goddess of love because she seems to have some kind of impact of the male energies, the solar energies coming from the sun. Okay? And now this seems really, really strange. However, this is one source, the Cryon information that's been channeled through Lee Carroll. And there's a great long channeled message, which I think is a bit waffly. But basically it talks about this because of the implications for Earth. And I feel it's important, if people are picking up this information, to say there is some kind of verification for this. And it is actually quite important, and I'm going to explain the importance. There is at the moment, there is some kind of balancing taking place between the energies from the sun and the energies from the cosmos taking place. Literally, Venus switched off the sun in some ways. We're not getting the massive solar activity that our scientists were expecting. The sun has been abnormally quiet. We've had the deepest solar minimum for at least 100 years, probably for the duration of, well, probably more than that. NASA really didn't know what to do because it was just so unexpected. But the metaphysical sources were just saying it's actually going to happen. There is going to be a rebalancing of energies. The sun is quiet, and it means that energies can stream in from galactic sources. We see, to me, I think the evidence is actually there. Now, I cite this source because I think that there's evidence that it's taken place. Here, there is a guy called, well, in fact, well, it's Anthony Watts, actually, climate bug. He's actually quite infamous in his own world, in this sort of the anti-global warming type brigade. But he's been saying for months and months and months, something switched off in the sun. He said that looks like a step function. And he identifies October 2005, the switch went. And the magnetic index, basically the level of magnetism of the sun, just dropped. And in fact, it hasn't recovered yet. And he's been saying this on his website time and time again. Something switched off in the sun. If you don't believe me, go to his website and find where he talks about the sun. And I think that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So, I feel that this is one of the sources, by the way, but he does continue to keep talking about this. I feel that it's important for metaphysical people to understand how this plays out in reality. Once we get these messages, it's not all airy-fairy. There's something behind it. There's a point. We are being affected by Earth's magnetic field, but Earth's magnetic field is actually it's a balance of male and female energies. And basically, we're at a time of tremendous change and adjustments are being made that we can actually understand if we know a little bit of science. So here, traditionally, the Earth's magnetic field is described as like a bar magnet, this dipole thing. This is actually incorrect. This is a really simple understanding of the Earth's magnetic field. It's a really simple. And even Wikipedia says, well, if you're a long way away, it does look like this. But actually, it's much more complicated. This is a sort of computer simulation, which I actually hate this. To me, it's meaningless, but the Earth's magnetic field has actually got different components to it. It's not simple. It's not north-south. It's a little bit more complex than that. But one thing that's really interesting is that people, especially now, because things seem to be getting really crazy, the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and people are starting to say what is going on. When you talk to the scientists, they say the North Pole is... they actually say that the North Pole is actually moving at a tremendous rate into Siberia, whereas the South Pole is already miles away from the actual true south. So there seems to be a discrepancy between the North Pole and the South Pole. That it's not a straight line. There is a balance. I've seen messages that talk about Earth having a broken spine. That somehow there is not a balance between the North and the South, the plus, the minus, the male, the female, the up, the down, the black, the white. It's a polarity thing, okay? And on this planet, it's reflected in the fact that the poles are not equal at all. So one of them, this is only moving at a very slow pace, 5 kilometers per year. This thing is racing at 55 kilometers per year. Literally, the poles are being readjusted for a better level of balance, which will help the energies on the planet. I really believe that this is being done. It's being caused by the fact that the Earth is receiving more feminine energies, and it's causing a realignment of the poles, the North and South poles. This, to me, is evidence of the information that's being given to us. It's physical. It's spiritual energies appearing on the planet, being absorbed by the core of the Earth and causing a realignment. It's happening, and people are like, oh, 55 kilometers an hour. And there's people are sort of like, they don't understand it, they don't understand it. However, it's been done for a purpose. The two poles, hopefully, I don't think we've got much more longer to go now for this realignment to take place, because apparently it's the 8 years. But there is a realignment taking place between the feminine energies and the male energies, and we're seeing it in the shift of the poles. Sorry, I've gone too far here. Okay? So here, if you want to see more of this information, I actually have blog posts, but I have lots and lots of entries on my website, so you just have to dig deep to find stuff on my website. But there is definitely something taking place that we can see and we can measure. Okay? So just officially, I just want to point out the fact that our scientists are aware of this. You want to answer the question? Sorry? You can see that, can you? You think this? You want to ask me? It's polarity. It's, as I say, it's positive, minus, up, down, black, white. It's just opposites. It's just people like to talk about male and female. It's just opposites. It's just there is a type of energy that comes from the soul, from the sun, that we say is male. It could be just one. The cosmic energy is coming. We could just call that zero. You know, bits and bytes. I mean, we could talk about ones and zeros instead of male, female, plus. It's just a way of describing the polarity, and that basically we are seeing some kind of realignment that can be physically measured. I believe that I feel that the evidence is, you could say it's all subjective, but I feel that we can look at this and consider maybe something's going on. I know, because I've done enough research, I know that as the Earth is actually being bombarded with energy, energy is literally spiraling at the poles and going deep into the Earth, because NASA has a satellite measuring that. I know that's happening. So I'm just trying to explain to people that it's not just subjective. It's not just some crazy ideas that people are being given. We are being told to help us understand the transition that's taking place, and I'm trying to explain this in a more scientific way what is taking place, and we can rejoice in that. If you're a spiritual person, you can rejoice in the fact that something is happening, and we do have evidence for the something that's happening.
Isn't it the polarity, the balance between north and south? Balance is not good now, but isn't it the real reason that the Earth has to turn around physically?
That's happening too. I don't talk about. There is so much to talk about. I don't even talk about the fact that the tilt is taking place. The Earth is actually realigning.
She's getting another position in the solar system because cosmic powers can reach her in another way.
Yes, it's happening. I mean, there are reports where people in Greenland and Norway are saying we can't match up the official solstice times with what we're actually seeing. Greenland said the sun appeared from the darkness of the winter nights 2 days early. I mean, this is causing a storm on the blogosphere. People are saying, well, what's going on? The Inuit Indians are saying that the sun is rising in a different place and setting in a different place. And they're saying that the stars are not in the same position. And they're saying, there's a whole documentary on this. I can't, there's so much happening, and there's a lot of resistance to explaining this. NASA are trying to blame this on massive earthquakes. They're saying massive earthquakes are actually slightly changing the tilt of the Earth. German scientists, as I said in my essay, said this is complete rubbish. No, something else is going on. There is a lot taking place.
There's been a lot of talk about the influence of HAARP. You know what HAARP is?
Mm-hmm.
I actually read an article years ago that it said that the Chandler wobble, the way
Yeah.
was actually increased in the beginning of the millennium due to HAARP activity, but some outside source has readjusted it since.
I'm very sceptical about this business with HAARP. I think HAARP, people are just completely overhyping it. There is no comparison to the huge, massive blasts that our planet is receiving. There is absolutely no comparison. I know it's very popular to talk about HAARP. I don't, because I just think the whole thing is overhyped. That's my opinion. I think HAARP was an experimental system, and I don't think it's done what they were hoping it to do. I see that the massive bombardments, I mean, these coronal mass ejections, it's like 1 billion Hiroshima bombs going off all in one go. It's massive. As I was telling the students, in Halloween 2003, we had 143 solar flares. It is incredibly difficult to find this information. No one wants to talk about it. You have to dig really deep. All the normal websites, space.com, spacedaily.com, galaxy.com, they don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about this massive bombardment of energy. We had something like 73 coronal mass ejections in the 2-month period, most of them over 10 days. They don't want to talk about each one of those massive bursts of energy. It's like 1 billion tons of plasma whacking over the planet. Now, not all of them came in our direction. Some of them shot off. But that doesn't matter because it's charging up the whole of the solar system. And some of that energy is bouncing back towards Earth anyway. No one wants to talk about the conservation of energy. Where is that energy going? It's just... Anyway, it's...
We see what happens.
Okay, I just want to say the other thing that people are chatting about in the blogosphere is the South Atlantic anomaly. And basically it's the whole, this is the weakest part of Earth's magnetic field where the Van Allen radiation belts are very close to Earth. And this hole, you can see from 1590 was nothing, and it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. This is signs of a reversal taking place. And obviously with the latest thing with the birds dying, people are starting to see this as a sign that a flip is imminent. So basically, when it comes to the Earth's magnetic field, they're seeing this racing North Pole going into Siberia, and they're seeing this hole just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the scientists, they don't really have a lot to go on. It's something that doesn't happen very often. What we could see is the Earth's magnetic field fragmenting. It may not even completely disappear. I don't think it will completely disappear. I feel that I have confidence that the universe is organising this in such a way as to ease the transition for us. But eventually, we're going to have something that is going to help create a new Earth. Just want to point out for the people interested in what's the impact of this big hole, lots and lots of failures with the satellites. And that's really the reason why space scientists don't really want to talk about humans. Everything's all about technology and the impact on technology. I would like to think in terms of not just the technology, but humans too. Okay, but that's just for those who are interested in the technology, that's the impact. Lots and lots of software errors associated with this hole. It's just a real problem. Okay, now this is probably a little bit controversial. The discussion of fire in the sky. I just felt it was important to explain the fact that we haven't really helped ourselves on this planet by setting off all these nuclear bombs, quite frankly. We've had something like about 2,010 tests between 1945 and 1996. To me, it's like blowing a hole in the roof, and when it rains, you're going to get wet. That's what our scientists have been doing, and I think they've got a particular problem in the United States because of all the experimentation, as well as setting off bombs in the Van Allen belts. Okay. So here, I just want to point out where this has been taking place. We've had a lot of bombs being set off in this region of the Earth. I just want to note to you that when we had a massive burst of energy in 1989, that the testing just dropped off, completely dropped off, and we've virtually nothing since this sort of time. I feel that the energies on the planet have become so unstable that they couldn't set off any more bombs. But I still want to just talk about the damage that was done in the 1960s. Basically, the Americans and the Russians just went crazy. For their own reasons. They weren't happy with the ionosphere. It doesn't help them with their communications. It's not good enough. They wanted to just destroy the natural system and create something artificial, even though they don't actually understand how the Earth works and what all these belts of radiation were doing. What are these currents flowing through space in these fields? It's a very, very strange attitude, actually, quite frankly. And literally, they set fire to the sky a few times. This is what... Sorry, I want to go back here. Here, the Queen's astronomer, Sir Martin Ryle, who I think is now dead, this is the experiment where they made the biggest protest. They say, you guys are crazy. They literally did this in secret. They didn't ask anybody's permission to blow holes in the roof of the world. They just did it. It's the mentality. And there's a whole series of these experiments they did, literally burning holes in the sky. I just don't believe that we can just ignore that fact that they did this. Okay. So here it says that the Earth's magnetic field took 10 years to return to normal. I've read conflicting things, actually, quite frankly. I'm not sure if that's actually true. Different sources say different things. We just have to be aware of the fact that we have done a lot of damage already to the Earth. I just want to point out Sir Martin Rees, who is the current Astronomer Royal. He's the Queen's official astronomer. And he doesn't have anything nice to say about the US military at all, quite frankly. His book is considered to be extremely apocalyptic. Extremely apocalyptic. And for someone in his position to say the things that he says is actually quite interesting. But I believe that this man is aware of ancient knowledge, of tremendous change on this planet. He is aware of what has happened in the past. And therefore, he's coming from a totally different position to other people. His criticism of the US and the mentality of the military is actually quite strange. But he's got to the stage, I suppose, he doesn't care anymore. This is what he thinks. That they've abused their position. They've done things that they shouldn't do, and he's prepared to actually say it in public. So the other thing I want to just mention is we have had events taking place like Tunguska, which we don't completely understand. We have had fire in the sky. Lots and lots of investigators have come up with different conclusions. Some think that an asteroid exploded in the sky. Some people even think that a nuclear-powered UFO exploded in the sky. All we know was that there was just massive devastation, but at least it was in a fairly remote part of Earth. Okay, so this is the place, Tunguska in Siberia. It's probably one of the best places for it to happen. I know it sounds terrible to say, but this was a massive, massive event where we literally had this pillar of fire and light. Massive explosion, the biggest natural explosion. It's interesting because I just want to point out the fact that when sources talk about the sky being on fire and the earth being destroyed by fire, we have examples of this fire. I just want to point this out. I think it's important. So, I've done my own research, and in my essay, The Greatest Transition, I talk about energy hitting the planet, a huge burst of energy that will help to light up the grid. But there is the other side of Earth's grid not being able to completely harness this energy, and a runaway reaction taking place. And the person that's done that work, I believe, is Robert Felix, and I'm recommending this book is to explain what happens when it goes wrong, or let's say the alternative option, or the alternative thing happens. And he talks, and it's an easy to read book, it's not complicated, but he just talks about the fact that we can have runaway reactions in the sky that create huge amounts of soot, huge amounts of carbon. It can create all sorts of elements, iridium, all sorts of things like beryllium-10. You just get like a runaway reaction. And he basically is saying what scientists don't want to say. Okay, he's basically saying, look, this is the evidence and this is my conclusion. A lot of people have read his work, and he's getting a lot of support from scientists, especially because he talks about the connection between magnetic reversals and ice ages and the magnetic field collapsing. All I want to say is that when the Earth's magnetic field collapses, there is a massive release of energy. And you want to stop me now, do you? Okay, so here I just want to point out, if you want to do the background, so I've nearly finished actually, that if you want to look at this website, which is basically radiocarbon, they explain that carbon is naturally created in our atmosphere, and that basically the nuclear testing has actually created lots of artificial carbon. And now all of a sudden, they want to actually want to take the carbon out of the atmosphere. So we've had all these nuclear bombs putting carbon into the atmosphere, and all of a sudden they want the public to pay for it to be removed. Okay? It's as simple as that. What concerns me is I think that we are seeing a strange reaction taking place in our atmosphere now. We seem to be seeing, I believe, some kind of fusion effect taking place. I actually would like to talk to chemists and people who've studied this. I'm not a chemist, but to actually explain why we're seeing extreme energies in Earth's atmosphere. I believe that something is happening, and I think that what they want to do, this is my opinion, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I believe taking the carbon out of the atmosphere is to stop this reaction taking place, where we seem to be having a really strange catalytic process taking place. This is just for the chemists here, okay? Anybody, I would be interested in talking to anybody about this. Okay, but from a cosmic viewpoint, I believe that Earth is graduating and that we're seeing these sparks of life. From a cosmic viewpoint, Earth is starting to sparkle. Earth is starting to be like a jewel in the cosmos. We're seeing these massive bursts of energy, but from another perspective, Earth is starting to shine in a completely different way. With this massive bombardment of energy, there's something happening on another level. Okay, and I just feel that, just to point out, it looks like bombs going off in the universe, but it's not. To me, this is something on a deeper level taking place. It's transmutation of energy. Okay, I'm to shut up
We
now.
have to break, if you will.
Okay.
Allow us.
Okay, I
Can
think
you just
that's
say
the
in
end.
2 words what you are going to say after the break?
Okay, after the break, I'm going to talk more about humans and more how this has been affecting us. I've been quite technical up till now.